Hey YouTube, this is Dragnix. Look what I got for Christmas. Okay, you can't actually look at what I got for Christmas. I'm actually talking to you with it right now, so you can't actually see what I got. Never mind. Alright, so I got a Logitech C920 webcam. It is a very nice webcam, 1080p resolution. You could probably see the dirt on my wall. Probably shouldn't point the dirt on the walls out. Well, okay, so you get to see this mug from now on. And this leads into my next point rather nicely. Disappointment. Yeah, you see, because you're probably disappointed now that you've seen my face and probably had a little bit different picture of who was behind the camera. And like that, games have been a little bit of a disappointment this year in certain cases. Now, don't get me wrong, there have been some great games this year. There have been Bayonetta 2, This War of Mine, Rollers of the Realm. But on the other hand, there have been some rather big disappointments in gaming this year. And that's what this list is. It's the end of 2014, and now it's time to take a look back on what 2014 has brought us. So this is the top 10 disappointments in gaming this year. Now, keep in mind this is not necessarily a game or a game that I played. It could be a gaming company. It could be an idea in gaming, for example. But regardless, these are the top 10 disappointments in gaming this year. Number 10, The Walking Dead Season 2. Okay, before you stop this video, hear me out. This may be a surprise to some people. The game was relatively well received by most people, and I agree, I enjoyed the game. But the game fell far short of what I expected from it. Season 1 put a high bar up there. My expectations were through the roof. It was going into Clementine's shoes for the first time. It seemed like a story that I definitely wanted to be a part of. After a great and consistent storyline with interesting characters and wonderful decisions in the first season, I felt that the second season just fell short. Of the new characters, only Jane really interested me, as others lacked depth and understanding in terms of what they had gone through and what the zombie apocalypse had done to their nature. Now, Clementine was obviously the focus of this season, and while that worked for the most part, it missed the back and forth that her and Lee would have on a regular basis, and that's what was really interesting about the story in Season 1. In the end, Walking Dead Season 2 failed to deliver on that aspect, and that's what was really disappointing to me. I only hope that the next season returns to the first season's quality and direction. Now, you may know Kenny was in this season, and that may have been that back and forth relationship, but I thought his actions sometimes were too over the top, and they didn't have the rapport that Clementine and Lee had. He helped pull things in, but in the end, it didn't emulate that relationship, and that was something I was really missing in the end. Number 9, The Evil Within. Again, this is a game that was alright, but why this gets to be disappointment number 9 was what it could have been. The game definitely had elements of horror, and if it had kept a certain focus on doing one particular method of horror and suspense, it could have done really, really well. Direction hurt this game more than anything else, and by that I mean a lack of direction. Its haphazard nature and attempts to slap all these elements of horror and suspense together made a game that I wanted to stop playing halfway through. It starts off strong and could have kept it up, but by the end I just wanted it to end. The cliffhanger it leaves the player on at the end also feels like a low blow, especially when a key plot element drops off the face of the earth, and that wonderful DLC that may explain the answer is sitting there. This left a really bad taste in my mouth for sure. It wanted to be Resident Evil so much, but forgot about some of the key elements that made Resident Evil so good. In the end, it was a meh experience. Number 8. Ares Extinction Agenda EX. I love the original Ares. Say what you want about it and its low Metacritic score, but it reminded me of old Mega Man remixed to a new day style. So when this remake was to come out, I was really excited. How do you screw up an update like this? By screwing up the controls. The controls weren't as responsive, and that really fucked up with gameplay. It led to jumps that became harder to manage and more precise platforming, which with a bit slippier controls made it really hard to enjoy. Hell, the section where you were jumping to escape this giant orb proved it. The amount of times I died on that one section compared to trying it on the old game really showed the game's problems. The new visuals also seemed to have different collision detection, which made it even worse. The armor mechanic was taken away for some reason, and honestly, it just didn't make a good impression. The new art was nice, but it couldn't make up for the change in gameplay. To me, it dumbed the gameplay down on what was already a reasonably simple game. I thought that maybe it just didn't line up with my original thoughts well, so I played the original again, and no, the original still worked for me. Let that be a lesson. Mess up your gameplay, you're gonna have a bad day. And even though I love the original Ares, I won't be returning to play this game anytime soon. Number 7. Capcom.
Honestly, what did Capcom do this year? There was a badly ported version of Dead Rising 3 to the PC. There were people that are still having problems playing the game, and even those who were able to play couldn't get the game to run at a reasonable frame rate despite their rigs being able to take it. The fact of the matter is that they used 6-month-old drivers during their testing originally. Does that sound like a good idea? Now, they've finally gotten a majority of players playing the game on PC now, but not after a lot of ups and downs, and honestly, Dead Rising 3 did a little to seem like an improvement to 2. They tried to make it more accessible, but it just lost that sense of style and fun that the original had for me. The biggest draw for me in the franchise was always the psychopaths, but with only 7 this time around, despite their good theming, it started to fall short for me. And then there's your franchise fighter on the PC, Ultra Street Fighter 4. How did switching your franchise fighter over from Games for Windows Live to Steam go? Not well, as it's ruined the online experience for a lot of people. It's still having problems today despite the fact that the problem seems pretty obvious at what it is. I'll put a link down below. And yet, DLC content and new modes are being added? Seems like a reasonable problem. And yeah, great, Street Fighter V announcement may have gotten a lot of people excited, but then it was followed up by stupid copyright claims because Capcom of Japan are a bunch of idiots and don't understand the new technology and the new media that are out there. This seems like a company that is failing to go into the future of gaming. This, plus no classic games that might have won back some fans of yours, Mega Man, and Capcom seems in real trouble to me. No, seriously, they seem in real trouble. Some people may think I'm crazy on that, but I see the signs of a company who is going to go bankrupt in 2 to 4 years, even with the major assets behind them. You know what it honestly reminds me of? Sega. Number 6, Gauntlet. My nostalgia takes a hit here, as I remember playing Gauntlet Legends on the N64 vividly. It was chaotic fun for everybody. I really wish I could find that cartridge. I can't say the same for the remake. Honestly, I can explain Gauntlet in one word: boring. The small things aside, like bindable controller keys and in-game chat that I complained about very, very early on, yeah, that's a big one, but regardless, the game really suffered from one major thing. It wasn't that fun. It's not anything that fans of the series deserved. Meh controls and options, meh attacks, meh gameplay. It's not something that will keep your attention beyond a couple of hours, and that's really problematic for a game that's going for repetitious gameplay. Bosses are meh, levels are meh. It's one of the only times I've reasonably disagreed with Total Biscuit on one of his portions lately. What fun you got out of Friends seemed better in a vastly superior number of games than what this game brought to the table. It definitely never replicated that old Gauntlet Legends feeling. Honestly, the game had nothing going for it in the long run. It may have updates to have helped that since then, but you start with a bang, not a whimper. The gameplay was too dumbed down for me, and the game really suffered because of that. Number 5, Borderlands, the pre-sequel. People say it's more of the same from Borderlands, but I actually have to disagree on that one. It's a step backwards. The writing in particular. Borderlands 2 to me had a lot of good moments in writing in it. There were moments that legitimately made me laugh out loud, or moments that stuck with me. In addition, characters were a lot more memorable. Characters like Tiny Tina gave the game life. And that's what I have to say about Borderlands the pre-sequel. It feels soulless to me. There were some good parts of the story, most of them revolving around Handsome Jack, but a twist during the middle part of the story derailed the entire story for me entirely. It didn't fit the characters, and felt like it had to happen for the sake of Jack turning evil. It felt forced. Side missions definitely failed on several levels too. They felt more like a chore than going and searching for another awesome mission to do. Missions like Jack's grandma and shooting a guy in the face in Borderlands 2 were vastly superior to this game's side missions, and in a grinding game like this, that's really gonna make a difference. In addition, what the slam added to the tiny bit of gameplay, the oxygen meter and the gravity slowed gameplay down reasonably for me, which is critical in a spastic shooter like this. Loot was meh, the game was just meh. I'm holding off on the series going forward. I gave it another chance despite my reservations, but it's definitely a step backwards for the franchise. Number 4, failures of early access and Kickstarters. Despite some successes that have happened during this year in releases like Shovel Knight, this year has been a huge disappointment in terms of successful early access and Kickstarters. They seem to be falling apart left and right. Double Fine space-based DF9 pulled the rest of its promised features to finish off the game because they said they had no money. Yet keep selling the game and using the funds to finish other projects. Rip was a game that I played on this channel as a fine example of where early access is just a cash grab, where a game that had really nothing behind the hood wasn't finished at all and just sucked in terms of gameplay and yet was being sold like a regular $15 game. Gamers are getting more savvy in terms of where they put their money, and now early access has a stigma around it due to the times it was abused this year, which is a shame. There are games like Anikira seem to do things right in terms of the model. Making a game is not easy to do, and the fact of the matter is the barrier of entry with early access and Kickstarter made it much easier to make these games, and while that worked in some cases, that definitely didn't work for the majority. Number 3, Ubisoft.
Now, remember this, Ubisoft? This was a unique game. This was something new, the first Assassin's Creed, and I loved it. And then you came Assassin's Creed 2, and that was good too. But you've had a bad year. Let's go over the list. Assassin's Creed Unity, you're still patching the problems with it. Doesn't help that you had microtransactions in a single-player game. Not going to even question that one. You had the debacle with Watch Dogs and the graphics on it, but even then, the Watch Dogs game was mediocre at best. And then things like Tetris for the PS4. Yes, Tetris. How do you ruin a game like Tetris? Well, you make it have a really bad frame rate, for example. I mean, Ubisoft is going bad right now. They're looking really bad for 2015. There's also Drive Club. You see, there's something that Ubisoft is failing to realize, that games take time to make, and the yearly model that they've seemingly come up with in terms of their games, it's not working. You see, quality takes time. Nintendo is the greatest example of this. They don't come out with a game like a Star Fox game every year. It's like a couple of years or several years. That's where you get quality from. It takes time and repetition. What they need to realize is that the whole franchise and game a year thing is not going to work. And then when you sort of screw around with people, like the review embargo for Assassin's Creed Unity, people are going to remember that. Hell, journalists are going to remember that. Now, they have a chance to turn it around. I point to EA of all people. They've done a really good job lately in terms of quality, in terms of their Origin service, and they are giving back a little bit more to the fans. Even though The Sims 4 didn't do good on launch, they are adding more content as they go along. They do still have hope in Ubisoft, though. There were games like Valiant Hearts and Child of Light that really did show that they still know what they're doing. Let's just hope they continue that trend.
Number 2, big games journalism. Now note, I'm biased on this one, considering I'm part of a site that has direct competition in the group in question. I do write for TechRaptor and do video content every so often for them. Here's a couple of links, for example. So there is a major bias on my side here. Now, you see how easy that was to indicate where my bias and where my opinions could be influenced by? Now ask yourself this. Why are the bigger gaming sites like Kotaku and Polygon seemingly having a problem with this? Look, whenever you have a year when major gaming news sites indicate that gamers are dead, you have to question where in the hell they've gone to. Regardless of Gamergate and everything surrounding it, there are major problems with the games journalism industry. Just looking at trends show it. People are going to YouTubers like Total Biscuit and Let's Players a lot more than them now for how good a game is, and there's a reason for that. Gamers don't like being told that they are a dead audience, and with clickbait titles as well as incorrect and inaccurate items that have been published, sites like Kotaku and Polygon need to realize that insulting your consumer base, it's not the greatest of moves. IGN and The Escapist are two good examples of how to do things right in big games journalism, with The Escapist redoing their policies and IGN staying out of the fray entirely. Look, it's why I joined TechRaptor in the first place, to get involved to make the kind of articles and videos to help the consumer make a choice. The consumer comes first. And more so, letting social trends influence one's opinion about a game. Let's not be mistaken here. There is not a thing called a completely unbiased review. It's just not human nature. But you do your best to approach that unobtainable goal, and you don't abandon the cause just because it's hard. A review like the 7.5 given to Bayonetta 2 is a prime example. Because you have a problem with the content of the story, it shouldn't translate that hard to a score, or at least you should make an effort to make it clear how much it did affect your score. That's why the review system on my YouTube channel exists. It was really influenced by that review alone. Opinions matter, and gamers will get them from a variety of sources, but big media needs to be careful. They're on a path of destruction right now. Number 1, Sonic Boom: Rise of Lyric. This may not be the biggest disappointment to most people, as many expect bad games from the Sonic series. Hell, when I bought Sonic Boom to look at it, I expected mediocrity. What I didn't expect was a game that rivaled the infamous Sonic 06 in terms of bugs and boring, repetitive gameplay. I will go on record, this game is worse than Sonic 06. Despite the technical problems with Sonic 06, this game's design is just plain horrible, while Sonic 06 design, it was alright, it's just the fact that they didn't execute it. It's clear, they didn't understand what kind of audience this game was going for, and each element of Sonic Boom: Rise of Lyric is lacking in direction. This game was obviously rushed for Christmas, but even worse, they haven't even patched the problems with the game. They've abandoned it. There were rumors that a lot of the staff have left Big Red Button. And the sad thing is, these are former Naughty Dog employees, one of the companies that I look at that do wonderful things. What the hell happened? No, seriously, this game does have one thing going for it. It's a guidebook for developers on what not to do in a game. I'm really serious on this. This is a step-for-step guide on how to frustrate the player, how to piss off the player, and how to make a game that will piss off a bunch of people. I can just imagine the nightmare of having the QA this game. Sega's franchise mascot may need to be put out to pasture at this point. That's the second abomination it's created, and it's obvious that Sega doesn't know what it's doing. I hate to say that. Games like Sonic Generations and Sonic 3 were lovely games, but I wish this was the death blow for this franchise. I know it's not going to be. It's too big to fail at this point. But Sega, you are in real trouble.
So that is the top 10 disappointments in gaming this year. Now, you leave a comment below if you agree, disagree, or you think there's another disappointment this year. Now, I know that games like Assassin's Creed Unity and the whole Tetris thing, they all get bundled up into the Ubisoft category, but, you know, I also didn't play those games in particular. They were enough to keep me away from them, in fact, so I wanted to highlight them. I do have a real problem with Sonic Boom, and I hope that the industry doesn't use that as an example. I really hope it doesn't do well in sales. I hope it really doesn't. But this is Dragnix signing out. If you have any comments, leave them below. And, you know, if you like this kind of content, I'm going to be doing a lot of top 10 videos for the end of this month. You know, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. It really helps me out. I mean, I'm trying to make a career of this. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you have a chance, leave some feedback and comments below. If you liked the video, hit that like button. And if you want more content like this, hit that subscribe button. This is Dragnix signing off, hoping that gaming brings as much fun to you as it does for me.